Hello and welcome to Global Eye. The day two of the SCO Foreign Ministers Meeting in Goa had Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari in attendance. He is the first leader from Pakistan to visit India in almost 12 years. Speaking later at a press conference, India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar said Bilawal Bhutto's position as a spokesperson of Pakistan, a terrorism industry, was called out several times during the SCO meeting in Goa. Further, taking a jibe at Pakistan's economy, Jaishankar said that Pakistan's credibility with regard to terrorism is depleting faster than its forex reserves. On the other hand, amid rising tensions in border areas, India and China held talks focused on disengaging at the line of actual control and said that relations are not normal where things stand as of now. Jaishankar said it cannot be business as usual in China till the issue of disengagement is addressed.
As a foreign minister of an SCO member state, Mr. Bhutto Zardari was treated accordingly. As a promoter, justifier, and I'm sorry to say spokesperson of a terrorism industry, which is the mainstay of Pakistan, his positions were called out and they were countered. I mean, I would say Pakistan's credibility is depleting even faster than its forex reserves.
To take this forward, we're now joined by Victor Gao, Vice President of Center for China and Globalization, Brahma Chellaney, Strategic Affairs Expert, Michael Kugelman, South Asia Expert at the Wilson Center, Hamid Mir, columnist at the Washington Post. Hamid Mir, if I could begin with you, how do you see this visit by Bilawal Bhutto to India? We had a terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir. We lost some of our soldiers. The External Affairs Minister clearly said that India has been outraged by what has happened in Jammu and Kashmir in that terror attack. We don't want to jump the gun, but Pakistan, he referred to as a terrorism industry and Bilawal Bhutto as its spokesperson. So how do you see the chemistry, the messages coming out of both sides when it comes to India-Pak relations at the SCO meeting?
Thank you very much for inviting me on your show. Well, this decision of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari to attend SCO meeting in India was a very, very difficult decision because he is still under a lot of criticism. Even today, many prominent leaders of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which is led by former Prime Minister Imran Khan, they are attacking Bilawal Bhutto Zardari with different allegations, and they are alleging that he is there to sell out Kashmir. And in India, he is facing criticism from your foreign minister. So it was a very difficult decision, especially yesterday in the Senate of Pakistan. The opposition was mad to attack Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. So it was his decision to go to India, not to visit India. It was not a bilateral visit, as you also mentioned. He just attended an international forum and he tried his level best to explain his position. Now you are talking about the terrorism incidents in India. It's very unfortunate, and wherever the terrorism incidents are happening, it's condemnable. But I want to tell you that yesterday and today, there were at least 4 terrorism incidents in different parts of Pakistan, especially on the Pak-Afghan border. And our defense minister and our interior minister, who belongs to PMLN, which is led by Mr. Nawaz Sharif, they think that this terrorism, which is now becoming a big issue in the border areas of Afghanistan, is sponsored by India. Now, you can say that India have no presence in Afghanistan, but they say that there is a lot of Indian presence before the Taliban captured Kabul. So the Indian foreign minister made allegations on Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism, and the Pakistani government, especially our defense minister and interior minister, they are making allegations on India for sponsoring terrorism. And you must remember that one Indian spy, Mr. Kulbhushan Yadav, is in the custody of Pakistan since many years, and he accepted the responsibility of organizing terrorism incidents in Pakistan, and he was from Indian Navy, and he worked for the Indian intelligence agency RAW. So there are allegations on both sides, but I think that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari visited India not for improving relations with India. He just visited India for attending an international forum. But I think that ultimately, despite all the allegations of foreign ministers of India and Pakistan, maybe something good will come out of this visit.
Right. Brahma Chellaney, how do you read this visit of Bilawal Bhutto? There was no shaking of hands as we saw it, or the External Affairs Ministry admitting to anything of that sort. Yes, Bilawal Bhutto attended the dinner hosted by Subramaniam Jaishankar like other foreign ministers. Will something really come out of this visit, like Hamid Mir is saying? How would you read into it?
Well, first, it's often being mentioned in the Indian media that this is the first visit of a Pakistani minister in 12 years. But we tend to forget that the Indian Prime Minister Modi paid a personal visit to Pakistan in 2015. And what did Modi get in return for visiting Pakistan? What that visit yielded a series of Pakistan-scripted terrorist attacks, major attacks that have imperiled the India-Pakistan relationship. But looking more broadly at Pakistan today, Pakistan is torn by a deepening crisis. It's sinking into a deeper hole. Its military-backed prime minister is clutching at straws for survival. Pakistan looks internationally isolated, and in that context, for Bilawal Bhutto to visit the SCO meeting certainly appeared to be an effort to burnish Pakistan's image, that it's not isolated. But the fact is that by constantly holding a begging bowl and seeking bailout assistance, Pakistan is an embarrassment even to its friends like China and Saudi Arabia. It's constantly seeking bailout assistance. And to make matters worse, there's a weak, unpopular government in Pakistan. That government remains in power entirely due to the army. This government is in no position to mend relations with India. So Bhutto may be in Goa. The fact is that even if India was ready, this government in Pakistan is in no position to improve relations with India. In fact, Pakistan may be hurtling towards chaos. And yet, ironically, in the past, the army has been quite willing to return to power. But today, the Pakistan army enjoys power without responsibility. It's getting the best of both worlds. Through backseat driving, it directs the prime minister, who's little more than a chauffeur, and lets the blame for the country's economic and political turmoil fall on civilians, the civilians that run the government, the Supreme Court, and other national institutions like the Election Commission. So civil-military relations in Pakistan are at the root of Pakistan's problems. Unless the civil-military relationship is corrected, we will not see a more stable Pakistan.
Okay, Victor Gao, if I can get you in at this stage, what was China's major mission at this SCO meeting? And if we were to first ask you about the bilateral meeting between the Chinese foreign minister and the Pakistani foreign minister, what were the priorities and what are some of the assurances that China is giving Pakistan for the future?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, please allow me to congratulate the successful launch of the SCO Foreign Ministers Meeting. Secondly, allow me to express my sincere hope that India will do an excellent job in hosting this Foreign Ministers Meeting for the SCO member states. Thirdly, I think every one of us should be really amazed that SCO has become such a good umbrella to group countries like India and Pakistan together under the same roof. This is truly a remarkable achievement. All of us should be very proud of that. Now, being under the same roof, how can countries like Pakistan and India should deal with each other, should treat with each other? That's another thing. I hope we will have a very successful approach to each other between Pakistan and India. Now, between China and India, I'm so glad to see that our foreign ministers also have met successfully. And you mentioned Pakistan being isolated. So long as China and Pakistan remain allies with each other and good friends with each other, please allow me to emphasize, Pakistan will never be isolated, because you're talking about a very solid friendship and brotherlyhood, good neighborliness between Chinese people and Pakistan. You may also know that through China's brokerage, Iran and Saudi Arabia recently struck for peace and made a peace agreement. And the world is still enjoying the repercussions of the peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. I personally hope China will be able to play a role for greater rapprochement between India and Pakistan eventually. Right now, it's a mission almost impossible, but we should not give up hope. We should give the rapprochement and better relations between India and Pakistan a chance, because we are living in a world, and SCO has a very important role to play. That is to promote peace, stability, and reconciliation, rather than allowing confrontation and conflict or even war to break out within the SCO member states. This is a very important thing that all the SCO member states should strive
I'd like to
for.
get in. All right. I'd like to get in Michael Kugelman at this stage to react to what Victor Gao said. When it comes to the diplomatic muscle that Pakistan has as of now, today in the press conference that External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar addressed at the conclusion of the SCO meeting, Michael, he said that Pakistan's credibility vis-a-vis terrorism is depleting faster than its foreign exchange reserves. But how much support does Pakistan really have in the region, and challenges for India that you see?
Well, I mean, Pakistan is, of course, in a very difficult spot right now. We know about this poly crisis that it's experiencing, headed up by a very severe economic crisis, as well as political paralysis and a resurgence of terrorism in the country. So it's looking for as many friends as it can find. But indeed, we have seen in recent weeks, really in recent months, that even its closest friends are not jumping to its side to provide bailout assistance in the ways that it could have expected in the past. And I refer specifically to its Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia, and even China for that matter. But I would argue that this is why it was especially important, I think, from Islamabad's perspective, for the foreign minister to be at this summit in Goa. I mean, this is a rare, I would argue, this is a rare regional forum where Pakistan, even aside from India's membership, Pakistan actually finds a lot of friends and countries that it's seeking to engage with. China essentially dominates the SCO, and China is a close ally of Pakistan's. Russia also has traditionally exerted a very significant role within the SCO, and Russia is a country that Pakistan is clearly trying to cultivate a closer commercial relationship with, and we've seen that it recently ordered its first shipment of oil from Russia. Meanwhile, half the SCO membership is based in Central Asia, and that is a region that Pakistan has long sought to strengthen engagement with, mainly because of it's a resource-rich region. India, of course, is also seeking to strengthen engagement with Central Asia. So, I think at a moment like this, when Pakistan really needs as many friends as it can, it wants to take advantage of any opportunity to have bilateral meetings with senior officials from these Central Asian states. So for all those reasons, I think that it actually makes a lot of sense for Pakistan to have sent the foreign minister. But indeed, it's in a heap of trouble. Now that Mr. Bhutto Zardari is heading back to Pakistan, he's going to return to a country that's experiencing severe stress And nothing emerged from the SCO that would change that bottom line reality that Pakistan is just in a lot of trouble right now and needs to focus on getting its house back in order, so to speak, before it could focus on broader foreign policy goals in terms of making forward movement.
Right. Hamid Mir, taking forward what Michael Kugelman said, what has Bilawal Bhutto Zardari been able to take away from the SCO meeting? We're talking about how India and Pakistan reacted to each other, but in terms of his own bilaterals with Sergei Lavrov, the Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang and other bilaterals on the sidelines of the SCO meeting, what has he been really able to take from there? What are some of the key messages that you're getting from people on the ground? There was a contingent of Pakistani journalists also present there.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And first of all, I must tell that you can criticize Bilawal Bhutto Zardari from the Indian point of view, but you have to accept that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was the hot cake in this SCO summit. And not only the Indian media, but many other international TV channels, they were also covering his visit with a lot of curiosity, and he was the center of the attention in the whole summit. And initially, this visit was not getting proper coverage in Pakistan, but when the Indian media and even the Iranian media, they started highlighting the visit of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, then the Pakistani media was forced to cover that. Yes, some of our colleagues were there to cover the SCO summit, but unfortunately, our journalist colleagues who are covering this summit in India, they also came under severe criticism from the party led by Mr. Imran Khan. The most important achievement of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari from this visit, from the Pakistani point of view, is that today I noticed on social media and on some other TV channels that some of the independent analysts who were criticizing that why Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is visiting India while the Indian security forces are committing human rights violations in Jammu and Kashmir, why he's going there. The same independent analysts, after the press conference of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari today, now they are praising him. So I think that when Bilawal Bhutto Zardari will come back from the Pakistani government's point of view, it was a big achievement that he visited the SCO summit. It was an international forum. He presented Pakistani point of view there. But on the sidelines, when he addressed a press conference, after a very long time, some Pakistani leader raised the human rights violations in Jammu and Kashmir on Indian soil, on Indian land. And this is the biggest achievement of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari when he will come back. So a lot of people have already started praising him. So this is his biggest achievement, that he criticized the human rights violations in Jammu and Kashmir while standing on the Indian soil.
All right, so you're saying that he has won political points back home. We're going to take a short break, but the other big focus, what happened between India and China, what happened between China and Russia, and India and Russia at the SCO meet. Don't go anywhere. This discussion with Brahma Chellaney, Michael Kugelman, Hamid Mir and Victor Gao continues on the other side. Welcome back. We're discussing the big takeaways, highlights of the SCO meeting in Goa with Victor Gao, Vice President for Center for China and Globalization, Brahma Chellaney, Strategic Affairs expert, Michael Kugelman, South Asia expert at the Wilson Center, Hamid Mir, columnist at the Washington Post. Brahma Chellaney, if I can ask you about the chemistry, the meeting, the bilateral meeting between China and India on the sidelines of the SCO meeting. How important is this engagement at a time when border tensions remain at their peak? We've not been able to resolve the boundary dispute, the Galwan dispute, over the last 2 years.
First, at the larger picture, let me just point out that India is the only established democracy in the SCO, which increasingly has come under China's sway. India's membership lends respectability to the SCO, which would otherwise be seen as an anti-Western club of democracies, of autocracies. But the question that is really asked is, what does India get from membership in the SCO? Most SCO members are part of China's BRI, which India has opposed since its launch. The fact that the SCO deliberations are conducted only in two languages, Mandarin and Russian, underscores the Sino-Russian shadow over the grouping. In the new global divide between the Western Bloc and what is emerging as the China-Russia axis, India wants to serve as a bridge. So in that context, maybe membership in the SCO could have some symbolic benefit for India. But coming to the China-India relationship, the two countries have been locked in a military standoff for the past 3 years. Now that's a very long confrontation between the world's two most populous countries. And that military standoff began in response to Xi Jinping's territorial aggression in the Indian region of Ladakh in May 2020. Xi Jinping miscalculated when he assumed that China could force India to accept the new territorial status quo as a fait accompli. Since then, India has more than matched China's military deployments, fueling the largest ever military buildup in the Himalayas. And with India refusing to buckle, Xi Jinping has sought to overwhelm India's defenses by opening up a new front in the eastern Himalayas, more than 2,000 kilometers from Ladakh. And we saw what happened in December in the Tawang sector, where clashes broke out when China attempted to intrude into the Tawang region. Now, Xi Jinping is going to be coming to India, not just for the SCO summit, but also for the G20 summit. So if all goes well, Xi Jinping will be in India 2 times in the coming months. Now, the question that arises is whether Xi Jinping's visit to India could set the stage for ending this military standoff. The problem that Xi Jinping faces is that he finds himself in a catch-22 situation. This standoff is a result of his territorial aggression. Yet he cannot end this standoff without losing face, because this standoff can only end through the Chinese willingness to disengage and de-escalate, which means it has to pull back its forces. So pulling back its forces would mean Xi Jinping losing face. So we'll have to see whether Xi Jinping's visits to India, and we don't know whether he'll come for both the summits, but he's going to come for at least one summit, whether his India visit could act as a catalyst for at least diffusing the tensions.
Okay. Michael, when it comes to Russia, do you think this visit would only give a chance to Russia to deepen their relations with all SCO partners, give a chance to Lavrov to brief all foreign ministers, SCO foreign ministers, on Russia's view on the Ukraine war and how it plans to continue fighting it? Do you see relations between SCO nations deepening further in the months to come?
Well, I would certainly argue that the SCO is one of the few regional and indeed global organizations where Russia is welcome. Russia doesn't have any enemies within SCO. It has quite a few friends. And you contrast that with the G20, where we saw that it was very difficult. The G20 meetings that have taken place this year and last year, for that matter, very difficult for them to be effective and to reach consensus on anything, just because you had the U.S. and several other Western countries that are so violently at odds with Russia, given what it's doing in Ukraine, that it wasn't really possible to move forward. It's very different with SCO. So indeed, yes, I think this is one of the rare forums where Russia would be in a position to engage with other members in ways that could lead to some broader consensus on the various goals that animate SCO. But that said, let's be very clear. none of the countries in SCO, besides Russia, including China, support what Russia is doing. Everyone wants the war to end. So it would have been nice if there could have been an opportunity for a country like India, or China for that matter, to have a bilat with Lavrov on the sidelines and to deliver a message that there needs to be restraint, there needs to be efforts to de-escalate. This is, of course, something that Prime Minister Modi has delivered directly to Putin in the past. I don't think that those types of conversations happened within this session. We'll see what happens when the Leaders' Summit takes place in New Delhi in July. But yeah, short answer to your question is that Russia's comfort level within the SCO deliberations would be much higher than it would be in the G20, where it would face the wrath of the members from the West, the US in particular, that are obviously so opposed to what Russia is doing in Ukraine.
Okay, Victor Gao, very briefly, my final question to you. Do you see relations between India and China improving? When Xi Jinping visits India for the SCO summit and later for the G20 Leaders Summit in September, will there be a plan to somehow end this standoff when it comes to China's solution to what's happening at the LAC? What is that version and how can this be resolved according to China?
Thank you very much. I think the expected visits by the Chinese President Xi Jinping to India for the G20 as well as for the SCO summit later this year will be very important, not only for the multilateral gatherings, but also for China-Indian relations. From the Chinese perspective, we have all the eagerness to make a final resolution of the border disputes, but then both sides need to be objective and need to be decent in dealing with each other. And I don't think the line of actual control is the final border between China and India. We really need to be very careful in analyzing the origins of the border disputes and try to make sure that the border disputes are eventually put behind us. Because after all, both China and India are the only two superpopulations, meaning each country has a population of above 1 billion people. And as superpopulations, we have extra responsibilities, not only for our own people, but for each other and for the rest of mankind. Therefore, I do have confidence that India and China will eventually demonstrate sufficient amount of wisdom, vision, courage to sort out their border disputes. And your other panelist mentioned about India's role in the world of today. I would want to emphasize that it will be a surreal and dangerous world if India loses its own independence of making up for its own foreign policy. India has always pursued an independent foreign policy as a leader of the non-aligned movement, etc. And I do believe that India will keep its own independence of mind, and rather than being subjugated to any other big power in the world.
India has always been clear that it wants a complete status quo at the LAC as it existed before the Galwan clashes. We'll have to leave it there. Hamid Mir, Michael Kugelman, Brahma Chellaney, Victor Gao, thanks once again for joining us with the highlights, big takeaways from the SCO meet in Goa. That's a wrap. Goodbye.